you ready to do this?
Every former athlete wishes they could go back.
Love the game. It gave me so much. You have a small window of this thing. Enjoy it.
This is A New Path, a sports podcast, hosted by Peyton Schmitz.
And welcome into the New Path podcast today. And today's episode is going to feature a former Major League Baseball player, Eric Fryer, former catcher of the St. Louis Cardinals, the Pittsburgh Pirates, and the Minnesota Twins. Eric, how are you doing today?
Hey, doing great. Thanks for making me feel special by saying former big leaguer, right?
Yeah. Well, hey. But this podcast is dedicated to talking to former athletes and kind of learning what they went through in their career, what things were like. And so we're just going to go ahead and jump right on in. Does that sound good?
That sounds exciting. Yeah, no, I'm excited about this.
Awesome. Sweet. So, for those of you who may not be aware, Eric Fryer, as I mentioned, played catcher for the St. Louis Cardinals and the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Minnesota Twins, but went through a lot to get to that point in his career. So we're going to kind of back it up and go to the early days. First off, what made you fall in love with baseball?
What made me fall in love with baseball? I guess something I did my whole life. My dad was a ball player. I remember when I was younger, I got a batting tee with like one of those rubber balls and strings attached to it, and I would just hit it in the backyard over and over again. It would hit out, and the ball would come back and put it back on. So that was my first true love. I guess just hitting that ball over and over again, it just kind of took off from there.
Yeah. The love of baseball, for those unfamiliar and haven't listened to Behind the Plate on 88.3 FM WXUT, Toledo's only alternative, my radio show. I'm a big baseball guy, so having Eric here on the show is an amazing opportunity. Thank you again for doing this. But baseball, it's one of those games. It's America's pastime, You got it's an amazing sport. I think more people should get into it. Real quick though, I am curious, what are your thoughts on the torpedo bat?
Yeah, I didn't see any of the games with it in there. It's interesting. I think some of the teams are embracing it more than others. Like obviously the Yankees are really taken to it if people are familiar with the news. But to me, as long as it's kind of within the rules, bats have been kind of altered to fit people's needs and likes and wants for a long time. So I don't see anything wrong with it. It looks a little funky, but as long as it's comfortable, then it's players' preference, I think. And it's within bounds, so it's definitely legal.
Yeah, for sure. Gotta be legal. So kind of jumping back into kind of learning about you and the history with baseball in your sport and also other sports. What all did you play other sports? Were you purely a baseball guy?
I played other sports, basketball, like throughout my youth, probably since 8 or 9 years old, all the way through sophomore year of high school. Football, I played for a few years, junior high, early high school years. Baseball is always the dominant, the rock, but I tried to do other stuff in the off seasons too.
Yeah, gotta stay active. You a big bowler or golfer or anything like that?
I used to bowl a lot. Yeah, they used to give us these free cards. You probably got them too. At the local bowling alley, where every day of the summer you'd get a free or 2 free games of bowling. You just have to buy shoes. And so me and my buddies would get those cards. We bought ourselves a cheap pair of bowling shoes and we bowled free all summer. Something fun to do.
Yeah.
And as far as golfing, no, I don't golf. I probably should golf. In the business world, it seems like golf is a little more of a thing, but haven't golfed in I don't know how many years.
I hear you there. I am not very good out on the green. But so kind of you played catcher, you went to the pros, but we're going to kind of flash it back to high school. Can you talk a little bit about what it was like to play at Reynoldsburg, which is a school in about the east side of Columbus for anybody unfamiliar, and what it was like to lead the team to back-to-back district titles in 03 and 04?
It was fun playing for Reynoldsburg. It was one of those things. I was fortunate enough to play starting as a freshman all the way through senior, obviously. In my freshman year, we weren't really good, and I was playing a position that I didn't really like and wasn't very good at either. I was playing shortstop. But over time, and we had fortunate enough to have a pretty good class. It was a really cool experience to watch everyone grow. It wasn't anything like we were super, I guess, over the top or overly complex, but the team was just really, really tight knit as we got older.
Yeah. Do you still talk to any of those guys from back in the day, or not really?
Yeah, a handful. I wish I would have stayed more in touch, but honestly, I haven't stayed as in touch with just all my baseball cohorts as much as I probably should have. But I see them every now and then. We touch base, so it's as you get older, you get families, and time just gets eaten up.
No, I hear that. So Reynoldsburg 03-04 district titles. In 2004, you guys go to a regionals, and you have a regional title in 2004. In that game, 10-inning loss that you pitched in, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Right.
What was that? A 2-1 loss against Mentor in the state semifinal. What was that like?
Yeah, it was a big bummer. I know we were super excited to go. I'm trying to think of the name of the stadium. I feel like Thurman Munson Field or something along those lines. Didn't know much about Mentor then. They had a couple guys going to D1 programs, but our school was busting up some students, which was pretty cool. I just remember it was a back and forth. Someone hit a home run off me early in the game, and that was all they got. And we had some chances, but weren't able to get many runs across. So it was a tough fought ball game, but unfortunately, it kind of came up on the lesser end. It was funny down the road. I saw some of those the teams we would have played from. I think Moeller ended up winning it, or Ignatius, one of the two, down the road in pro ball. So I was able to kind of chat it up and tell them we would have beat them, but who knows if we actually would have.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And Reynoldsburg, that was great having success in high school. So far, really the only success in the playoff the school has had in baseball. Recently had a basketball, went into the finals in basketball this year.
They did awesome there. I heard that.
Yeah. I bet just was the runner-up. Almost got there, but not quite. And then talk about what it was like to go from Reynoldsburg, about 20 minutes east of Columbus, down to Ohio State.
It was great. Ohio State I had an affinity for Ohio State. My grandfather, he was one of the assistant coaches a long time ago with Earl Bruce. So he had some ties there, some natural ties. He grew up around the program. And I've always, kind of liked the baseball program too as well. I went to other places. I can remember seeing some MAC schools, going to Miami University, and even went to a junior day at Michigan. And oddly enough, they hosted us at a basketball game when they're playing Ohio State. And I just remember I'm not going to root for Michigan. Like this doesn't feel right. So
right, yeah.
Ohio State just felt right. And the timing was great. They had open at catcher, and it just really fit my needs.
Yeah. So 2005 through 2007, do you wish that you had spent a little longer in college, or are you glad it was just 3 years?
No, I don't think so. I think 3 years was fine. I wish we had more of the benefits of signing now with like slots and things like that the current players do. I think that would have been nicer. But no, I liked my time at college. I liked my time at Ohio State and everything I learned. So I thought it was the perfect amount of time.
Yeah. Growing up in Columbus, everybody's talking about Ohio State, whether or not it's football or basketball. You don't really hear a whole lot about baseball, though. So did that ever get to you mentally, or were you just like, you know what, hey, I'm at Ohio State?
I just liked it being at Ohio State. Yeah, baseball was definitely not one of the programs that was on the front and center, but it was really cool because we had some awesome teams when I was there too. The football team was, unfortunately lost to Florida in the title one year. Basketball, the same thing. But, it gave you a lot of confidence knowing how well other sports were doing. So even though, we were kind of separate athletes and things like that, I think as a community, like the Buckeye pride always ran through everyone.
Yeah. So now kind of moving on, as we're progressing with your baseball career, we go from high school into college, and now you get drafted in 2007, 10th round, pick 311 from the Milwaukee Brewers. What was that draft experience like? Obviously it's not quite like the NFL draft, but still, I mean, getting drafted, that's a really cool experience.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, for those that don't know, maybe the higher picks, which I was not necessarily one of them, they might get different treatments or feel a little bit, better about the draft day. My draft day was just kind of like sitting in front of a computer, like wondering if I was going to get picked, and finally getting a phone call from, I guess, a scout from the Brewers that said I was selected. So it wasn't anything too exciting. And actually, I wish I would have done something else instead of just waiting around on the computer to see when I was going to get picked. But it was, it was definitely a realization, knowing that I had a chance to go play professional ball, because that's what I wanted to do for a long time.
Yeah, going and playing professional ball, that's any real athlete's dream, whether or not it's football, basketball, even, hockey, gymnastics. But were you kind of a little bummed that it was the Brewers that drafted you, or were you just like, yes, I'm in pro ball, it's happening?
No, I don't think. I mean, I don't think anyone would be bummed about one way or another. I was pretty, looking back, naive just on the whole draft process and things along those lines. But no, I was pumped to get drafted. I was a little, not bummed, but it was different going out my rookie year to Helena, Montana, just because it's pretty far away, mountain zone, time zone differences, pretty challenging. But other than that, no, I mean, I thought the Brewers was great. It was a great first organization, and I was thrilled to be part of the Pro Bowl.
Yeah. What was that process like going through the minor leagues? You went kind of up and down for many years, and then ended up making your major league debut in 2011 with the Pirates. But that was a long road to get there. When you went from the Brewers to the Yankees to the Pirates organization. Can you talk about what that was like?
Yeah, it was a little bit different, getting traded a couple times in a single year. I remember I think I was down, must have been Arizona for early workouts, and then got pulled aside with the Brewers saying, "Hey, you just got traded." So I said, "Okay." I had to pack up and wasn't allowed to throw, so I went to the Yankees place in Florida. That was interesting. Played there for a little bit that summer, and then, yeah, sure enough, got traded again. Got a call from Brian Cashman, of all people, when I was, I think we were in maybe Sarasota, Florida at the time, and me and my wife had to pack up all our stuff and drive up to Lynchburg, Virginia, to join the Pirates affiliate up there. So yeah, it was definitely interesting. Some of my best memories, though, are in the minor leagues. You get pretty tight with your teammates. I mean, you're not in the best conditions. You're sharing, it's a lot like college. I mean, you're sharing rooms, you got roommates, busing across the country. You get pretty tight. So I mean, it was a lot of fun, even though it was a long haul to get to the big leagues. It was definitely well worth it.
And so let's jump into that big league experience. You make your debut in 2011 with the Pirates, and what was that like going forward from that moment? Where you felt like you were top of the hill, top of the mountain, or was just kind of like, yeah, this is where I should be?
No, I didn't think I was necessarily the top of the hill, top of the mountain. I was excited to be there, but I was also extremely nervous. I got the call that I was going. It was, I mean, me and my wife and family, we were eating breakfast at Panera Bread, and I got a call saying, "Hey, you gotta catch a flight in like 20 minutes."
Oh, geez.
And I, obviously didn't have anything packed, didn't have any of my gear packed. At first and foremost, I was like, well, I can't. So they said, "Okay, well, pack everything up and start driving," basically. So we threw everything in the car. We drove across from Indy to Pittsburgh and made it, I don't know, about 5:30 for game time. That was great. When I got my first start, all I wanted to do was just try to catch the first pitch that was thrown in there. So
yeah,
I was certainly nervous. I wish I would have felt maybe more confidence in my approach, but no, it was definitely a thrill to get that first taste of big league experience.
Yeah. So Eric spent from about 7 years in Major League Baseball, bouncing between AAA a little bit with the Pirates, the Twins, and the Cardinals, as mentioned earlier. You're probably seeing this question coming, but what was it like backing up Yadier Molina in St. Louis?
It was awesome. Yadi was great. I learned a lot from Yachty. Yachty had obviously a lot of respect from not only the people in the organization, the young catchers in the organization, but across baseball, across the world, really. So it was fantastic backing him up. It was fantastic watching kind of the game prep and watching film with him and how we're going to attack certain hitters. That was a lot of fun, and Yachty treated me great. So during our time, like I kind of knew, because Yachty was obviously a workhorse. He caught pretty much every game. So I knew when he was going to need breaks, or when it was going to get out of hand, he was going to get pulled. So we had a really good kind of relationship during those, year and a half, 2 years we were together.
Yeah, I mean, Yadier Molina, for any young baseball player out there, if you're not familiar, look him up on YouTube. The man was a legend. If you're a catcher at all, or even not, I mean, you just watch what he does, and there was nothing like it. Was there anything he did to kind of prepare for games that kind of blew your mind?
No, I mean, nothing really to prepare. I learned a lot about how, like I said, the game prep and the film watching, things like that. He knew the hitters in and out because he'd been around so long. So that was definitely a bonus, kind of picking his brain a little bit. But I think the idea of maybe just how he received it's a lot different than it is now, where he's very soft and bringing everything kind of in towards the chest, where now it's pretty much you're framing every single pitch back to the middle. A lot more movement, where him was a lot less movement. So, I mean, the catching position looks kind of different, but at the same time, there's definitely the same fundamentals that I see with Yachty that a lot of catchers are applying now.
Yeah. So kind of moving on from Yachty, we're going to move to another person in the Cardinals organization you spent some time with, also former Reynoldsburg High School graduate, Mike Matheny. What was that relationship like?
I mean, I think it was good. I think Mike looked out for me. I think he tried to help me along when there's opportunities, talk for guidance, things along those lines. So, Mike was the player I looked up to when I was, growing up, being from Reynoldsburg, a lot of the same similarities, same positions. I remember going to his catcher's camp when I was 9 or 10 years old. So, I mean, being from the same hometown and having the same kind of friends and people we knew, it was kind of a cool bonding experience. Truth be told, I almost didn't sign with the Cardinals in 2016 just because I didn't know if it was going to be a weird story or people were going to talk about it. It just felt like, I don't know if it's the right thing, just like being the same high school and things like that. But, luckily my agent, he kind of talked me into it and said, no, you should consider it. I don't think it's really going to be a big deal. So it wasn't, and it all worked out in the end, which I was grateful for.
Yeah, for sure. I can kind of see where you're coming from, though. It may be a little weird, but it's a good thing your agent talked you out of it, because I'm sure it was some great times in St. Louis.
But looking back, I wasn't good enough for it to matter to make a story about it. So that's also the good thing. I should have just realized that. Like, hey, you're coming in as just an invite to spring training, so let's not make too much out of it. So, like I said, it was definitely some good times and bonding with Mike too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, give yourself a little credit. There was a story on MLB.com about it, so give yourself a little credit.
I missed it. I wasn't reading the headlines, I guess.
Well, no, you're in the middle of spring training. So, you get there, you're in St. Louis, and you're playing through your career, going through the ups and downs of professional ball, which is a conversation in and of itself. But you get towards, it's 2018, right? You're getting towards the end of your career, and you end up leaving the Cardinals, and you sign with the Phillies, and then things don't really work out there at spring training, and you go ahead and decide that's it and retire in 2018. Can you talk about what your thought process was there? Do you wish it had gone differently? Anything like that?
Yeah, it was a weird time. So it was 2017 was my last year with the Cardinals. When I was released, I elected just for free agency, and what other circumstances wasn't picked up or didn't sign, I can't really remember. But to start, I was signed with the Phillies going into spring training. We had just moved into a house. We had young twins, 5 kids at the time. Were I think 6 years or younger. So we had a lot going on there, boxes everywhere, and I was about to leave the family, and I was feeling kind of banged up with my shoulder and everything. So it honestly just didn't feel right. to kind of leave at that point, just because, you know, my wife Allison was going to have a lot on her shoulders. I was going to have a lot going on in my head, just, you know, knowing I wasn't going to be able to like throw for a little while and just basically rehabbing. And it just felt like it was not the time to go down there. So could I maybe gone and stuck it out and lasted? Yeah, I think I could have, but just mentally, I don't think I was in the best spot. So that's why I decided to step away.
Yeah. And with that decision to step away, you kind of alluded to a little bit with mentally and how that kind of impacted you there. Were there ever moments after you racked up the bat for the last time, racked up the gear? Were there ever moments where you were wondering, you're sitting at home watching TV and you're like, man, it just doesn't feel right?
Oh, in terms of like I should be out there playing or something like that? No, I never really thought that. I think all former athletes would say they miss the games and things like that. But to get prepared for a season, to get prepared for games in general, like you got to put yourself in a pretty different headspace, pretty different mindset, just with training and the commitment that goes into it. And it got to a point where it was getting tougher and tougher to get to that mindset. So it would have been a disservice to the Phillies and really myself if I wasn't, you know, fully invested in what I was trying to do.
Yeah. I know that's a thought process that kind of a lot of former athletes go through at a certain point where they're like, you know, it's not really the same as it was. Could you dive into that a little more?
I mean, I think that the best I could do is just a lot of my training. This is what maybe kind of helped push it along too, is a lot of the people I would train with in the off seasons, they were maybe moving away or retiring, or they were getting hurt, or I just didn't have the same group to work with. My strength coach, he had retired, so then I was trying to find my own kind of gig there as well. I was further away from my facility, so it was just a lot of things were stacking up, making it tougher to get prepped for the season. And then just in general, like the commitment I mentioned to him, and you kind of, not to get too deep, but you're kind of getting yourself into a pretty dark spot of just like, it's all encompassing, like it's time to go, like everything revolves around me and the training schedule, just getting work done. But life was picking up, kids are doing activities, I want to be part of them. So like I said, it just became more and more, not a hassle, but it was getting tougher to juggle everything, like anyone that's in a career now.
Yeah, no, 100%. I can definitely kind of see how that would impact things. You know, you mentioned your family and everything. Did you guys have did you have a conversation about that with you and your wife, or was that really something that you kind of just decided, or how did that work out?
I mean, we think we talked about it a little bit. I don't think I just mailed it in and said, see ya all of a sudden. I think
Right.
it probably surprised some people, but you know, me and my family, we talked about it. You know, could have maybe talked to maybe outside people a little bit more, maybe, but you know, I was happy with it. My wife was happy with the decision, and so yeah, I think we were definitely fine to walk away.
Yeah, and that's really good. You know, a lot of former athletes sometimes they're like they got regrets, but it seems like you were able to walk away on your own terms, and that it's really beneficial. So happy to hear that. And so now we're going to kind of move into the lessons and kind of things that you learned in your time in sports that, you know, you're applying to your everyday life now. And so are there any lessons off the top of your head, whether it be from high school or college or the pros, that you're able to apply to your everyday job?
Well, I mean, I'm in software sales, so it's you know, is there a direct correlation between sports and software sales? Maybe not, but I mean, I think a lot of athletes get into sales roles just because there's that competitive nature, trying to climb that mountaintop, getting to the top. There's that fighting spirit. So I can see that. The importance of routines, I think it's really helpful for, you know, not just business world, but just life in general, making sure you're checking off the boxes, having goals you're going after. Those are the big takeaways I've had. If there's specific lessons, I'd have to kind of noodle on that a little bit more. But the big ones I'm trying to do is just, you know, making sure I'm still setting goals and trying to achieve them. Because for the longest time, baseball was, hey, get to the big leagues and let's achieve those dreams. And obviously I was able to do that. So I'm trying to set other goals now for myself in the business world. Still defining what those are, but yeah, still working on chasing them.
Yeah, always having a goal or having something that you're set to, I feel is really beneficial because it kind of gives you something to achieve towards. And
That's right.
yeah. So do you have any lessons for current athletes out in the world, whether they be minor league athletes, high school athletes, anything that you would say, I struggled with this, or it was kind of something I dealt with? Is there any advice you have to them that maybe they're struggling with things?
I mean, I think the only advice I think I could give specifically for baseball, you get talked a lot, and honestly, it's probably a different game than when I was playing. Not to be like back in my day guy, but it seems like there's so many metrics and data and just ins and outs. They have so much more access to things than even we did when we were first starting to come under the data explosion era.
Right.
I'm not sure exactly what there is, but I would say there's so much stuff getting tossed to you. You have to internalize and figure out what works for you at the end of the day, whether it's a batting stance, throwing stance, a pitch sequence, what people are going to throw. It's good to listen to everything, but the final, the buck stops with you. So you have to be able to put your, who you are out in front and just apply what is meaningful to make you the best player you are. So that'd be my advice. And for super young athletes, try lots of sports, have fun with it, see what you can do. I don't think we need to have crazy travel leagues for coach pitch players or anything along those lines. Like, just play the game, play lots of sports, and have fun.
I mean, I kind of have to now. Do you have any thoughts on travel baseball and kind of the state of where it is? I mean, I know personally I have a lot of thoughts, but you're the guy interviewing here today.
I haven't dove a whole lot into it. I guess a lot of my kids, they haven't really gravitated towards baseball. They've done other activities, or other extracurriculars, or different sports. I have my youngest one still plays baseball, but it just seems like there's a lot more teams from what I can see in travel baseball. It seems like it's, a lot of tournaments and things along those lines. Maybe it's for promotion and getting scouting and things along those lines. But, I know, speaking for me, I never thought of travel baseball when I was coming up as like an exposure thing. It was just more like going to play. That's kind of what you did. Like, we had to have a team, and it was the Cobras for a while. And then eventually, like, just my group of players, we just started the Sharks, and that was kind of who we were. We were just the same group of people over and over again. So, I mean, I guess that's my thoughts. Is it seems like there's at times can be a lot, but at the same time, if you have an athlete and someone that's driven and wants to pursue it, then, as parents, you want to try and pave as many pathways for them to succeed as possible. And sometimes travel ball is an option.
Yeah, I know for me personally, when I went through travel ball, it felt like, I played travel ball for like six summers in a row. And every year it was finding a new team and going through that process. And I'm sure, for you, it was a little bit different when you got to the majors and dealing with free agency and money and everything. But it was even just kind of a stress to just go through finding a new team for travel ball. So it's kind of crazy.
Unfortunately, I can't relate to the finding a new team. Like I said, we just had kind of the same group of guys. Occasionally might filter someone in and out if someone didn't want to play ball or anymore. So I think that maybe the overindulgence on uniforms and swag and things like that, that's a little bit outside of my realm. I'm not really all into that, but
I agree there.
Baseball pants and kind of t-shirt jerseys. So less was more kind of was a tactic.
Yeah, for sure. As we're getting towards the end here, you were a catcher. That was your main position. Obviously, you mentioned you played shortstop in high school and you were pitching and things like that. Any advice you have for catching specifically?
Catchers, and I think it's already kind of shifted. It needs to be an athletic position. I guess my advice would be just stretch a ton. Pilates, yoga, things like that were really great. I kind of took off on my flexibility with the Cardinals when they had a Pilates instructor that was, kind of available a couple times a week for, pitchers and catchers and anyone else that wanted to get involved with it. So I think that was great. I always just kind of thought of myself as one of those athletic catchers that could run too. And it seems like that's kind of where the game's gravitating. They want athletes that can move around and just be nimble, be kind of that Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, Swiss Army knife. That is, I've always kind of referred personally to catchers as the offensive lineman of baseball. You got to do your job, and everybody sees you do your job. They're like, hey, good job. As soon as you mess up, it's like, what did you do?
Yeah, I could see that. We're kind of like the centers, I think. We're maybe calling the audibles at the line, different things along those lines, where maybe you don't get all the glory of what goes into it. But yeah, you can definitely tell when something's off, if we're off, for sure.
Definitely, 100%. Eric, you got any more advice, words of wisdom, anything you experienced in your time in playing that you want the younger generation to know?
No, I mean, I don't think so. I think there's a certain fine line. This would be my last advice, where trying to be a all about you or a team player, kind of tread that line lightly. I think if there's one thing I could have maybe changed, it would have been maybe get a little bit more selfish at times, not just about making it me, but maybe taking not always the safe approach to hitting or things like that. If you're going to go up there and take your swings at the right time, take your swings. Take a few chances here and there and see what happens. So that'd be my only lasting advice. But I was proud of my career, proud of what I did, and looking forward to the next chapter.
Anything you're excited for in the next chapter? You got anything exciting coming up?
Spring break next week, or 2 weeks actually. So that'll be exciting. That's my chapter is week to week, month to month right now. So yeah, excited about getting through that and maybe getting a garden planted here this year where we've kind of slacked before.
Hey man, that's awesome. Gardening. My grandpa loved to do that. So that's awesome that you're getting into that.
Yep.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Eric. It was great having you on. Hopefully people that are out there listening are able to kind of take some wisdom from their words and really understand, a lot of athletes out there. There's so many athletes, especially in baseball, but just in general, you make it to the majors and it's still, there's just so many, and there's a layer that you don't really see. And so getting to hear from you and tell your story, hopefully people are able to appreciate that kind of life.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate the opportunity, the platform to kind of share my story a little bit more. I'm always a little shy to do it, but happy to take the opportunity when it opens up.
Well, that will conclude this week's episode of the New Path podcast. Be sure to tune in next week, as we will have another former athlete come on the show and talk about their story. This has been the New Path podcast with special guest Eric Fryer. I'm your host, Peyton, wishing everyone a great rest of your night.